and this is part 2 of the Hilda Season 2 deep dive. So now we go on to Chapter 8, 50-Year Night.
So this episode is actually very much a morality tale, isn't it? Because it's all about the consequences of your actions.
Yes, and I do need to mention one thing. This is my favourite episode of Hilda.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is what I was referring to. The world building reference in episode 1 was, I think I mentioned that I love things with like portals, multiverses, that kind of thing. But the other thing I said I love is time travel.
Fun fact, normally time travel episodes are often favourite episodes of shorts for me, not with Hilda.
Ooh, well, this is my stance on it as a quick checklist before we get into it. So, I mean, I have a soft spot for any kind of time travel, like yourself, Amy. I think it's incredible that in 20 to 30-minute episode, it covers so much amazing stuff, which we'll get into. Multiple versions of yourself, check. Like interacting with each other, setting up your own rules for a time travel scenario, check. Having a cool transition effect when you go back in time, check. Having romance implications, having action, having comedy, having drama, check. It's just the amount of stuff it covers.
And in keeping with one of the themes of this season, having the opportunity to brutally kill the main character.
Check. Yeah, just the amount of ground it covers and to brutal results, as you say, is absolutely astonishing. I just, as a time travel geek, I was so impressed by the episode.
I will say it's pretty tight, yeah.
They do all that with a lot of heart at the center of it. So the relationship is incredibly like relatable, moving, endearing. So they can do all that while still serving the story and serving the characters.
It also gives us another Tildy episode.
Once again, like linking to the wider world and linking to that character. And at the same time, as you started off by saying, showing the consequences of being grounded is where it starts off. So just the amount of ground it covers and the elan with which he does it is, I love this episode. I thought it was fantastic. I mean, we should probably and it starts, as you said, it starts off with her being grounded. It starts off like her being stuck in the house,
and then she's using that devious logic of the letter of the rules rather than the spirit, because it's like, well, I won't be violating the rules of being grounded because he lives downstairs in the same building.
Classic classic strategy. I mean, she is quite like naughty in a way, Hilda, when you think it through.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
I think we should probably check with someone like Alpha if the if that focus on the letter of the rule rather than the spirit of the rule is acceptable. There's probably paperwork to fill in.
I mean, it's so. I mean, that's another thing I forgot about that you just mentioned, Alpha, and him trying to keep a log of what the rules are for this version of time travel and how their day is going.
Yes.
Is gold, I think. But yeah, like, so he's the legal checker and the morality check on Hilda throughout the episode, and that's a great foil to have.
He's just acting as Hilda's conscience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because apparently Hilda doesn't have one of those.
So so I love how I mean
Okay, I exaggerate a little, but only a little.
it sounds horrible to describe someone as manipulative when Hilda is a likable soul, but she is incredibly manipulative to like get into the adventures she wants to.
Yeah,
So she stretches conscience and right and wrong as much as she can, I think, rather than totally negating it.
she'll bend the rules as far as she can.
Yeah, but she manages to do it in a place. So the setup is she's stuck in a place that's boring, and she can't do anything. So if you can't move in geographical space, you obviously need to travel through time to get your kicks.
uh,
And yeah, so she's bending.
and then she finds out how her neighbour's getting his kicks.
Yeah, I mean, let's be fair. It's quite fortuitous for this um, episode of Excellence to happen that the neighbor is doing something that she can latch onto. But once again, it starts off very mundane. So it's just a low level mystery of like what's he up to,
Hmm.
and then we follow him. I love the whole like magazines thing and the kind of time period like you're transported to, and seeing him as a younger guy, and all the guys just
Yeah,
nervously watching him. And the idea like even has its own original spin on it, so there's like multiple versions of him going back, and they just announced that from like the start of the journey back in time.
it's just this massive like convention of a bunch of guys who all look the same going on in that building that night.
A bunch of guys living in the past, and not getting closure or a way forward. And it's kind of like it kind of plays with what you said there about Hilda's conscience. So you obviously shouldn't muck about with time and space is like a general rule, like of life, let
Hilda doesn't
alone
care.
yeah, it's a rule of life, let alone time travel, like fiction. Like as a general rule.
Oh, if I had time travel powers, I would absolutely be changing stuff. I wouldn't care. I have time travel powers. I can change whatever I like.
You have to remember Grandpa Simpson's wedding day advice to Homer: if you ever go back in time, don't step on anything, no matter what you do. Because even the slightest thing could have the biggest consequences. In this case, a massive time travel anomaly
Or,
eating world.
or if you ever go back in time, like if you get to choose where you go, obviously first thing you just kill Hitler just for the fun of it,
That's true.
if nothing else.
We'll allow that. We'll allow that. That's okay. Uh, like you can tell, like how
If you don't get to choose where you go, it
yeah,
gets a little interesting. If you have to go to that night, well, maybe it's not terrible to try and have him meet her.
yeah. It kind of like, but there's a part of it where you think so. Just show Hilda's compassion, but at the same time, it's like there is the adventure element and wanting to see what happens as well. I think, and it's great. It's just great that we see the consequences, and it's just like what's great is like they don't lose the romantic like plot. It's the awkward dancing is really cute and likable. How he catches her just before she goes, just before it's too late, is really sweet as well. I think.
Mm.
And then they don't show you exactly what they're saying, but you know what they're saying. Like you get that kind of conversation, that connection.
One does wonder how things would have turned out if he'd found the first magazine Tildy left, and then, like, if he'd found it right after and used it and just gone up to her the first time.
Yeah, that's true. But I think life's like
Because that's why she created it. If he'd just done it, like, if he'd done it straight away,
yeah, but that's kind of the message of the episode, wouldn't you say, about these sliding door moments and like how
he had a shot and he didn't do it.
I mean, so the options are to. I mean, what's interesting is that person who you felt this connection with, and who in this alternative timeline he had this amazing life with, lives in the same place as him. Like lives
Mm.
very nearby, and I think there's a message there too about like not wallowing in the past. Because if you look forward, like you could have made that connection anyway, but just in a different way. So yeah, there's a lot going on in like such a short space of time, I think. And once again, bringing Tildy back in it is just a lovely touch. And then you've even got the witchcraft, like that, a logical in the world of Hilda, a logical explanation for why this has happened too.
Yeah.
But I love the little spin of like there's a finite number of magazines, and so they printed as many as they can. I love, as I said before, the cool. He's got his own cool effect. Like it's not a DeLorean, but it's still a pretty damn cool effect for how they transition. Which yeah, that kind of stuff's important. I think it's part of the fun. So it's just the right amount of balance of like doing the.
I just love your glowing endorsement there. Like, well, it's no DeLorean, but it'll do.
It's better than Endgame, I'd say, where they just like fly through a weird tunnel portal thing. It's up there.
You can't see my eyes rolling, but I guarantee that the mention of the endgame time travel, my eyes just fell out of the back of my head.
I think in time in time travel, if you compare like different time, we should do a whole time travel thing, shouldn't we? If you compare like different time travel transition like options, like this is one of the better ones. Um, so yeah, it's just a lot of fun, and it has possibly my favorite ending dialogue for any Hilda episode too.
Oh, Alpha's line.
It's so if I recall it
Poor
correctly,
guy is traumatized.
yeah, it's I think Hilda says, well, all in all, it worked out okay. It worked out fine in that. We watched ourselves die twice. Cut to credits.
I love that ending.
Great ending, and
It's possibly my favorite part of that entire episode.
it's fantastic. It's fantastic, and it's got a sweet. I shouldn't gloss over it as well. The sweet ending where super sad as well, where they knowingly sacrifice themselves. And you know, this alternative version of Hilda, as we've said now, but they knowingly like sacrifice themselves because they still have they've lived their experience like for the good of the world. And so you know, it's got the heart there, as I said before. So like great episode.
Yeah. And then we get a pretty emotional episode. And it's
Yeah.
so emotional that I heard that I heard that Bella Ramsey was actually crying while recording lines in this.
Oh, bless her. I didn't know that. Bless her. You can understand why, can't you?
Absolutely. This episode is oof, emotional.
There's a lot of emotional things going on. I mean, we should. I shouldn't. It kind of falls on from the last episode in that there's a lovely character moment between Hilda and Johanna, and they're both kind of reconciling after the fight. And this is really strong on their relationship being together, and kind of
Yeah.
parallels the parallels with the deer fox, like Twig, sorry, and the like alternative deer fox family kind of thing.
I like that we get all that bonding with Hilda and Joanna in this episode as well.
Mm.
While like Tweak's off looking for the deer foxes after being left out of everything.
Yeah,
And then you get so Tweak's off got that, but at the same time you have all that stuff with Joanna and Tweak together. Sorry, Joanna and Hilda together.
yeah, and you got a lovely origins story or a flashback, um, which is adorable. Firstly, like seeing the younger models of themselves, and just like fleshing out the relationship and where it started. Like sometimes when shows do that, I find it tedious, to be frank, where it fills in blanks that never needed to be filled in. But here, because they don't overdo it, and it is cute and sweet and ties in with where they are right now. I thought that worked really well, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, the endings. I mean, actually, I think one of my kids mentioned this. I hadn't noticed this. You know, in the opening credits, how Hilda like slides down the blue like spirit, like
Yeah.
so I think one of my kids highlighted that comes from this episode, which I didn't, I somehow not noticed that despite watching the credits over and
There's scenes from all the episodes in the intro.
yeah, I just hadn't noticed that particular one. So that's
They
like
have
kind
the
of like
time worm and stuff.
yeah, it's kind of like, that's very magical. That it's kind of this magical like surreal situation at the end, but kind of grounded in the emotional side of it. It has like a couple like random things like partway through. I think like that horrible wolf who's chasing them around the rocks, and
Yeah,
so it just like I don't mean this too harshly, but it contrives some peril. Like unlike the previous episode was very very tightly
yeah,
put
it
together and
absolutely
scripted.
does contrive peril.
This is like a looser episode, right? I think, but it's the power from this episode isn't from the really tight like setup and things like that. It's more from the emotional side and seeing their relationship and
Yeah,
Twig,
yeah,
Twig as well. Actually, like Twig. I mean, one of the notes I had on this was like the amount of character Twig has for like for an animal that we don't often see like Twig's mouth even like like only sometimes like there's only like a couple of like lines for its eyes and it's a very simple
yeah.
model and the amount of like character and emotion to get out of that
The amount of expression Twig has.
yeah like it kind of makes you think of like the classic like animated characters where you got very simple but iconic designs full of expression as you say
But yeah, a lot of point of this story ends up not necessarily directly 100% being sort of Hilda and Twig. As I say, I think a stronger part of it is like how that's used to sort of establish Hilda's relationship with Joanna more.
yeah
Like it was only once Twig was there that like Joanna trusted Hilda to be safe going off on her adventures.
yeah and they nod to that, don't they? They flesh that out in the flashback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that all gets shown in the flashbacks.
that's a good point. Like you have that kind of contrasting dynamic of being protective but also supportive of Hilda, I think, which is incredibly challenging given the trials and tribulations she would put a parent through. But just being there to help her find Twig in the first place is a big thing.
Yeah,
Like caring that much, and that is partly down to Twig, but a lot of that's down to her compassion for Hilda.
yeah. So yeah, after that emotional ride, we get I think we get a bit more of a light-hearted episode, even if it does once again have darker and more sinister elements.
Yeah, this episode is all right. That's my main note on it. I mean, Andy Serkis is great. I loved his guest star in it.
Hmm.
It's a light. There's no problem with it being a lighter episode, um, but
I think the show probably needed one after the last couple.
it did. It did. I just think there's an amazing later episode very shortly after it, and it's not quite. It's it does have like a sinister edge, and it has a nice emotional ending as well. To be fair to it, like it's got a lovely scene
Yeah,
around the Christmas tree with Johanna and Hilda, which I really liked. It's just I don't know. It's just for me, like I wasn't that into like the Yule lads. It didn't really They were fun. They were just like, but they're kind of not
they're annoying.
the the two. They're not yeah, and they're not like they're a bit annoying, and they're not massively different. There's not a really wildly different, unique group to other groups we've met before.
Mm,
It is unique, but not like markedly or particularly excitingly so.
yeah, like you know what's going on with this episode.
Yeah,
Like the moment they show up, you know what's going on.
I did like the callback to them trying to do something more mundane together.
Yeah,
That was quite nice to be
yeah,
fair. Because I quite like the like season
the
one.
little soup stand.
Yeah, yeah. I like the like season one like little got to get this badge, got to raise this amount of money, got to do this kind of thing. And then part of the humor and charm was that they get swept up into this crazy adventure whilst trying to do this like that kind of thing. So that was fun. Um, and there was a nice little like running joke about the secret ingredients and David
Yeah.
panic about that. I thought that was nice.
Honestly, I think it lands better than a lot of Christmas episodes, because a lot of Christmas episodes in a lot of shows, they're often really meh. And I think this lands a bit better than some.
Yeah, I'll go along with that. That's true. Um, they're very hit and miss. I think Christmas episodes. Yeah, they can be very. I think that's true.
Absolutely.
It's fun enough. It's light-hearted enough. It just it doesn't feel like particularly new. I don't think. But Andy Serkis is great.
Oh, absolutely not. This is well trod ground.
Yeah, I mean Andy Serkis is great in it, and it's got a nice bit of humour, as you've said, and it's got a nice ending, which still isn't particularly new, to be honest, but it's still nice. Um, yeah, it's eight.
And then we get a fantastic episode.
This is a fantastic episode. So I didn't put it in my top two, but it's still up there. I think. Is this your favorite episode then, Amy? Based on
Of all the episodes, of season 2, this might be the one I have watched the most.
wow, okay.
The Jorts incident.
I, I mean, I love this episode too, but I might let you take us through it because of your
Yeah.
like my enthusiasm for the 50-year like time travel one. I'd be interested like in what you got from this. Yeah,
So we all remember the tide rides, and yeah, as I said back in the season 1 uh, episode, yeah, it's fine. So there will be absolutely no future consequences from from Hilda's little forgetfulness at the end of the last Tide Mice episode. Nothing at all can go wrong. It'll all be fine. And so yeah, everything's nice and fine. Hilda and Joanna just having a nice normal day, and then the Tide Mice sneak into Hilda's backpack as she's heading off to catch the bus. And when she bumps into a Jorts delivery driver, she drops her bag, and the mice scurry off. And and that's the last we see of them, and it's all fine.
it's all fine.
All fine. So yeah, so Hilda goes off, and at that point, Hilda leaves the episode for a little bit because yeah, the delivery driver restocking a vending machine, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Ends up ends up just feeding the tide mice from a little packet of jorts. I do love that they came up with like a little snack called jorts.
And
I like the concept for those.
and I didn't realize until I rewatched it how much they feature. And
Oh yeah, you can see jorts in the
oh
background
my
of,
god,
of other episodes and stuff.
I mean, I want someone to make them, but I don't want that too because it won't be as it'll just become another snack. It won't be as charming as like what I imagine this to
Yeah,
be.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely. But yeah, so he feeds them some jorts, and the tide mice just like scurry aboard. And that's when his life gets interesting, because he's suddenly getting promoted and promoted and promoted, all in the same day, ending up being the CEO of the company. At which point, Jotes is like absolutely soaring on the stock market. The company's expanding globally,
yeah.
and and we start to see what's happening as like just there's more and more tide mice. just baby tide mice moving on to everyone at the company. And yeah, everything starts to take on again that sinister edge.
The extent to which they go for it on this, right? So like when you said, yeah, when the company,
Like last
yeah.
time we had the tide mice, it was this nice simple thing where it's just, it's making a person's like life better at the cost of stealing their soul. Um, and in this time, it's just cranking that up to its logical extreme.
It's like it doesn't even have like oh, you can have jorts with this like in a fancy restaurant or something. Like it even becomes like the fancy, like it conquers on like all levels. Like you see, get they even like show it in the background of fancy restaurants being served, um and like some of his promotions are just for, oh, isn't it just like he sits down one time and doesn't even say anything and he gets a promotion.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So they really go for that, I think, and it's wonderful.
And then, of course, you cut back to Hilda and Frida doing stuff with Frida studying to be a witch, and Kaiser shows up, and we get the diamonds again. I'm never not going to call them the diamonds. And uh, and once again we have the threat of avoiding because Hilda messed up, and the tide mice are getting up to all sorts of mischief. And honestly, really, Hilda should be thrown into the void at this point.
I've had a little bit of sympathy for Hilda in the sense that it was a genuine accident in this case. And like when the witches accuse
She
her, she's
didn't
like,
read
I
all the
didn't even
small
know it.
prints.
Yeah.
I do like there, however, when they're trying to throw her into the void, we of course get Tildy showing up, and Tildy buys them time to go and do something about the tide mice.
Yeah.
Tildy's great.
They don't. They just quietly sneak out, don't they? While she's like
Yeah,
with them.
Tildy just shows up and starts arguing with them, and the rest of them, like Hilda, Frida, Kaiser, they all just sneak out the back. Then, then of course, like they're hanging out at the library with Kaiser, and
Yeah.
they're they're just seeing all the stuff about Jorts, and then Hilda recognizes the new CEO, and that's when it all clicks. I love how Kaiser as well is just sitting there, just munching down loads of Jorts. Also, the fact that they find like tide mice droppings, and they're like made of gold, and David's just like picking them up and sticking them in. It's
It's
great.
gross but hilarious. Yeah, that's great. It's got lovely
Uh,
touches like that.
and then everything just goes like you get that real Ghostbusters scene when they all suit up in the Jorts offices and they get the Hoovers out. It's brilliant.
It's fantastic. It's I've got a weird award for surprisingly gripping and fantastic action sequences in the unlikeliest of circumstances. So
And
um
is that going to
so
to,
the
to
previous
the chasing
recipient
down the tide
the
mice?
previous recipient was I think it's called I Lost My Body, the French animated film, where a severed hand is fighting
Okay.
some pigeons on the subway, and it's bizarrely exciting, like compared to like other action scenes I've seen. Um, but I think Hilda's like taken the new title. I think the vacuum clean they're using vacuum cleaners to suck them up is just wonderful. It's so much fun. It's having like them split off into like different groups to do it as well.
Yeah,
It's fantastic.
it's wonderful. Yeah. And then how they finally trap the last two, the original tide mice, using jorts. Because they love jorts. They just love
And I
jorts.
love the fact it's a delivery driver who comes up with that like very calmly. It's this
Yeah.
little. It comes back to him at the end, which I liked.
Mm-hmm.
So and you see a different side of Kaiser as well, don't you? Like the more like she's having tons of fun, like sucking up the mice. I think it's fair to say.
I love just the look on like Kaiser's face. She's so happy doing that.
It's so much fun, and yeah, we got more of like Frida's witching.
I like how they went for the idea when they were talking about familiars previously,
Yeah,
with the idea of just like Hilda being Frida's familiar. That was a really cool concept that they've rolled with this season.
yeah, definitely. Um, so yeah, and a very good episode. I agree. It's just a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's very clever. Um, like it is a lot. There's a lot of excitement. I mean, the only other thing I wanted to say about it was this is a more general thing for me.
And it still has the creepiness of the soul stealing thing, because
Oh
that
yeah,
was always really creepy when that started happening in the original Tide Mice episode.
you're right, Amy. We should definitely mention that. It's such a because I think as you said in the season one recording, it's such a cool, like disarmingly, as you say, creepy effect, like for this kind of show.
The eyes and the mouth and the
Yeah.
sounds.
So just
They
casually throwing
absolutely
that back
nailed
in
that.
is they nail it. Yeah, it's great. Um, it's if Hilda did
It's
like a zombie style
fantastic.
movie, it would be great. It's that's great too.
Mm.
I mean, the only general comment I was going to make was that I really like I like it when certain shows and media like break off completely from the main characters sometimes and like follows like seemingly unconnected people who you just introduced
Yeah,
to. I
yeah.
think if you do that right, if you do it badly, then you get like some of the boring backstories of Lost and things like that, right? But like
They nailed it with Gil here. They absolutely nailed it.
and that's not me dissing Lost, but it's just saying like it's tricky to get that right all the time. Because I like Lost, but as an aside, but I get things like there's things like why the Last Man did it in the comics really effectively partway through, and you get a lot of other shows where they break off to another set of characters, like Blink, like from
Yeah.
Doctor Who, for instance, and you can yeah, if you establish the characters quickly and you make us like interested in them, care about them, and you make that it entertaining first and foremost as well, of course. Um, you can have like a lot of fun, and it's nice when you get to later seasons. Shows have a bit more ability to do that, I think, and that works really well sometimes. And then they bring in the main characters towards the end, and it all just like it all comes together in a really joyous like way. So a very good episode. I agree with you.
So we have one more episode before the big finale.
Yeah. What did you make of this one? Chapter 12, the replacement.
Ah, so on the one hand, I do think I can see how it was an episode that was probably going to happen at some point, just because it's a plot that you can expect happening. On the other hand, even while it sort of advances some of the ongoing, well, no, it doesn't even advance it, it just sort of calls, like, sort of has some call outs to remind you that the ongoing plot's going on.
Yeah.
At the same time, it just feels really fillery.
Yeah.
I don't. Mhm.
I agree with you. Yeah.
And I don't want to be like dissing this episode because it's okay, but it's a shame because I like a good Alpha episode and has some good scenes in this one. I like the bit where they try and trick the elf delegation.
I like that scene too, but I kind of felt like that kind of symbolized part of the problem of the episode for me. and it's still fun. Like Hilda, all the episodes are good. To be like frank, but it's just they kind of even then like that was a fun setup and it was funny for a moment, but then they quite quickly
But then
drop
it's
out of that
yeah,
scenario and they fess up that.
yeah.
And so the kind of
It obviously wasn't going to work. It was a silly plan.
well maybe if they went for it and even despite how silly it was they followed through on it. There was a lot of like potential
You
humor.
could have gotten an interesting episode just out of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt there were like missed opportunities throughout,
So
which
many.
is
Yeah.
unlike Hilda, I think. Because normally like they really do think right, this has happened, therefore we can do this, and it just like it felt like, and even though, and the emotional side could be more powerful, I think, given Alf, and it kind
Yeah.
of like it's kind of half-hearted and got resolved very easily. I felt.
I mean, how it's resolved is very much a textbook by the numbers resolution that you expect from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and it's like Hilda generally has a little twist to it. I think, in these kind of resolutions in a lot of episodes instead. Um,
Yeah.
so
I think
yeah,
this is just they needed to do another episode and like I don't know, maybe there just wasn't enough like they had so much they were juggling at the time that they couldn't really fit something like purely dedicated to that. I don't know.
you can see on paper why they went for it for sure. Like as you indicated before, but yeah, it's just even the timing of it. Like it might have worked better in season one even, and but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, but there were good bits of it. I mean, I really like from the safety patrol. I like the return of Gerda. Like she's a we've not mentioned her so far, but she's kind of a great character. I think she's kind of got the viciousness about her role, but got she's got like a nice little
She's a lot more grounded than he is
yeah
and like sensible and even if she does have that ridiculous thing with the whole way they trick her in the end.
yeah for sure
Very silly.
yeah yeah. I mean, even then they don't make the most of it, do they? That's true. Um, yeah, it's Should we get into the big finish then?
We should. So the whole season, we've had stuff building up. We've had more and more stuff with there's been the odd scene here and there during other episodes where they're finding a bunch of trolls like together while they're out during the day, or even in the Christmas episode, the Yule lads, when you have the creepy monster, the ogre coming to town, you you have them pass a cave with some trolls hiding out in it, and you've gradually had this build up outside the town
Yeah,
of more and more trolls out there sitting lighting fires at night. And now we're actually getting to the payoff for that.
an epic payoff. 45 minutes. I mean, I just think it's worth commenting on that alone. Like going for like that kind of longer
Oh
episode,
yeah, yeah, they're going for a full big story here.
and it's great. It's that payoff is worth it. I think. Like in quick summation before we go into the episode.
And we have jorts again,
George,
right at the start. Jorts are
very
in it
true,
again.
very true. But yeah, the trolls are more interesting than I perhaps would have expected based on the brief exposure to them previously. And they're kind of cute in their own terrifying way, I think, too. Um, so we've got a nice little setup. We've got a great setup, actually. I think I'm underserving.
Yeah,
It's a great, exciting start to it, I think. So yeah, you have them, the main three together. and her mum very reasonably.
Frida's doing magic.
Yeah, of course. And you can see why Hilda would be sucked into wanting to like be with them and do that work with them. And why it's her whole world and she has to do that, and why she's so dismissive of her mum's alternative plan when she returns. Yeah, at the same time you can see where
Mm-hmm.
Johanna's coming from too. And Johanna's probably right as well.
Also, I'm sorry, but Hilda, your priorities here. Joanna's bought a new board game. As a connoisseur of board games who has backed more than I can count right now on Kickstarter, I have I actually have board games sitting on my shelves that I kickstarted for shows that we have covered on this podcast.
Mm.
So yeah, how can Hilda not want to play a new board game with Joanna?
I love that that was your main takeaway from the opening of the episode. Um, what was it?
Hilda, her priorities are wrong.
What was the board game had a really what I loved about the name of it, it was kind of like magical yet incredibly mundane at the same time. What was the name of it again? It was Dungeon.
I can't
It was
remember
like
off the top of
Dungeon
my head.
Crops or something like ridiculous.
Oh, yes, no, yes, you're right. Which immediately I know which board game that's meant to be.
Okay,
That's probably Caverna.
right. Okay.
So that's a game where you're playing with a bunch of dwarves. And you're like mining out underground and building your little underground stuff. And you can either have your dwarves set farming outside the mountain, or you can have them going off dungeoneering and leveling up and killing monsters.
Mm.
And you need to balance that, or go all in on one strategy to like come out at the end of the game on top.
This I like because I'm also a big board games fan, and
Get Caverna, you will not regret it.
that's a little nice side note. I think.
I also highly recommend, as possibly one of the best board games of all time,
Mhm.
Spirit Island.
Ooh, I've seen that but not played it. I mean, I think we
You
need
should. It's amazing.
we need
Anyway,
we,
the
we, but no,
episode.
but linking back to the episode though, we need Johanna to come into the world and to do a board game night with her. She so clearly wants to do this. Hilda
Ah,
keeps turning her down.
yeah, no, I'll absolutely like play board games with Joanna. That
Like snack on some jorts, cucumber sandwiches, like settle down for an awesome board game night. I think that'd be good. So yeah,
you know what we need to do? We need to convince Stacey Haggard to come and play board games with us sometime.
well, would that come
That's
across
what we need to
creepily?
do.
I don't know. Would that be endearing? I'm sure we're going to have a subsequent conversation about this after the podcast and the ethics of like tweeting her about this. Um, I think as an aside, I might actually tweet her from the Dreaming Machine account and say,
Oh
"Let's
my.
play some board games and see what happens." But yeah, for sure. So
Yeah, Hilda won't play board games with you. Play them with us.
but you know, Sigh instead they go on this magical adventure. Like nearly break apart the universe, Sigh. So yeah, so I think it was. I love the tension again between Hilda and Johanna, and that without that, this episode would be less good. Like, for me, like I think that's important.
This whole season has set up the tension between them.
Yeah, and
And again,
yeah,
it's all been about that constantly eroding trust between them.
and I think if it didn't have that tension and was just about going through the rote adventures, well, I say rote, I mean that's underserving it because
This episode wouldn't have that impact when it happens.
it would be like some of the like less impactful episodes, but twice as long. Like it's important for this to justify its
Yeah.
length. And from a side note, that the spectacle of them going through nowhere space and that coming back, that's a very exciting start to this like odyssey they end up on.
What once again, I wanna see something in the future. Like I wanna see something tie into that with Victoria Van Gale down the line. Nowhere space accidents. You gotta be careful about them. They need to put up a sign like nowhere space. It has been X days since a major accident.
You could even make her a villain, like out and out villain, like for a whole feature season. But now I'm just pure speculation. I think they tend to bring her in just a little bit. But so yeah, we've got a nice reference back to nowhere space, and then we're in this mysterious, like, well, it seems like a forest, but very dark.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love the clash between them as they're arguing for different ways to deal with this.
yeah, and you can like. I think part of what I was thinking when I saw that was Hilda was thinking, oh, "Come on, I've been here before, and I know what I'm doing. We can't just sit here." And part of that is justified, and part of it is just like being annoyed and arrogant, and yeah, and they're still like very fractured, not communicating properly. And I really felt for Johanna actually in this moment when she can't communicate to her daughter basically. So not only
Mm.
are they in this terrifying place, but they're at odds with each other.
Yeah.
It's a total breakdown. Um, and it's got that like like that powerful moment when she just wants to put her hand on her like to settle to sleep and sleep with her nicely, and she just feels she
Mm.
can't. I thought that was really well done.
Joanna gets I love the stuff Joanna gets here. Like like when they bump into the trolls
Mm.
and how like they need to escape and Twig gets stuff and Joanna's the one who gets to do the heroics.
Yeah, and it kind of it felt weird in a way for to see her saying, "Hilda, you stay here. I will do this." Hilda, no, you can't just jump over. We will do this.
And here's the thing,
Yeah.
like if Hilda had been more upfront with her from the beginning, I can't help but feel that she'd probably have wanted to get more involved.
That's an interesting takeaway from it. You mean Johanna would have wanted to get more involved?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the stuff like if Hilda's going to be doing this stuff anyway, I think part of what this season helps is like she's now well aware Hilda is going to do this stuff anyway,
Yeah.
no matter how hard she tries to stop her. And like sort of the journey for her is coming to that realization and deciding if that's going to happen, she's going to be there to to try and keep Hilda safe.
Yeah. And there's even that moment when like Hilda turns on Johanna and says, "You just want to hang." It was happened earlier when she said, "You just want you don't have like your own friends. Like you shouldn't need to hang out with me," which is like really harsh thing. Sometimes kids saying temper kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um, and that's obviously like upsetting and harsh, but it did make me think. That's interesting actually. Like her daughter is her main relationship from what we've seen at least anyway.
I'd honestly love to get an episode focused on what happens to her when she's not around Hilda.
Yeah,
I genuinely think she should get more focus.
and I think this episode was a nice starting point of that. It was nice to like have a scene where we're following her, seeing it from her perspective, like for sure. Um,
Yeah.
I agree with you that that would be really interesting actually. Um,
Mm.
she's a fleshed out and interesting, empathetic character enough that that would actually be enjoyable interesting viewing. Like,
Absolutely.
there's so many other shows where it would be tedium if we did that, just her going to like a normal job. So it's real credit to the show and the way, and the voice actress as well, and the way like her character comes across. I think, and yeah, but at the same time, as you say all this, there's interest. They're stuck inside a mountain, um, in a
With
maze with
trolls.
trolls. So there's interesting magical like elements going on there.
And we get something that is that is sort of clearly a very a very blunt sort of analogy for the stuff with them, because of course they bump into another troll and her child,
Yeah,
and
and
it's like, yeah, you, and they can relate to each other quite a bit in some ways.
yeah, and it takes them a while to build up that trust and suspend judgment.
Yeah,
And I mean, not only a while, but them to be like actually physically taken to their home to like realize that they are just the same kind of thing. Um,
yeah.
and you get that a little bit with the the B plot as well, in terms of like Frieden and David spending time with that other troll. But yeah, it's more impactful and like very clear like analogy, as you say, for Hilda and Johanna's relationship.
So we should probably talk about Frida and David.
Uh, After I make the quick comment that that troll baby is a troll child is super cute.
Adorable, agreed.
Frieda and David. I like. There's a lot of things I like about that subplot. I think just the start of it, where um, David offers to stick with Alpha at the house,
Yeah.
and Alpha's very much says, "I don't need you for emotional support." So, like, nice try, David. So they go out, and it's just quite nice how like you get a bit more Frida's character, which I really enjoyed. How she says, she rationalizes it, and David says that's something Hilda would say, and she says, "Well, like she's right, that's correct," and just like her like slightly different take on it when she's driving it forward.
Mm.
Um, but I think it's very enjoyable when the patrol blimp like
I love that the Woffs get their revenge.
the revenge.
It's the revenge of the Woffs.
I mean, it's a shame they had to take out a blimp though. Like as well as time
The
travel,
Zeppelin had it coming.
I have a weird soft spot for blimps. Like in like,
Now, to be fair, the Zeppelin did nothing wrong, but Alberg had it coming.
he did have it coming. Well, it's
Also, once again, we're
yeah,
getting into Zap Brannigan territory. How many ships has he crashed now?
yeah, very true. Yeah, we're flying towards that blackish holeish thing. To quote Zach Brannigan, that's a different show.
Oh, also, when they all run into the trolls,
Mm-hmm.
what ends up saving them again when they run into a troll?
Well, Frida and David, you mean? Jorts.
Jorts. Everyone loves jorts. They're just really
Is there
tasty.
anything they can't do?
Honestly, this could be the solution. Think about it, okay? This could be the solution to all the problems. You have all the trolls, so you give all the trolls jorts. You have no need for the safety patrol. You just set up a regular supply of jorts to the trolls.
Ooh, that is good planning, Amy. You should really be in charge of that town.
Mm.
It, yeah. So I mean, that's a lot of fun. And it's like, yeah, we can't have too much jorts. I agree. And
Oh, I'm pretty sure you can probably have too much in the way of jorts. I've I remember when I was a kid, I have made myself absolutely sick on like skips and stuff back in the day.
they are essentially a junk food. But
Just eating packets after
I
packets.
guess just because they're a charming alternate world junk food, that makes it okay. There's no logic to what I've just said, but let's just skip over that. Yeah, I mean, I think Johanna like loves gorging on them when she's nervous as well, doesn't she? That's been established before, so I'm sure she would feel the same way.
Joanna's we've seen Joanna's idea of buying snacks before.
She has a problem.
She likes her snacks.
I mean, they're like worse addictions to have. To be fair, I think, yeah, she really does, though, doesn't she? So I think with the B plot, it's quite nice. You know, it's great turning Eric into a bug, very simply, and Frida using a witchcraft for that to happen.
Keep him that way. Keep him that way permanently, please.
That's a lot of fun, and him not realizing what's going on is quite funny. I think it's just a nice little change up. I think to go along the main plot, but the main plot, yeah, it's just a lot of peril and things involved. I mean, I think when I first watched it, I really enjoyed the episode. I still really enjoyed it again. I think it's quite samey in terms of the environment they're in, which is fine
Hmm.
because they're focusing on the trolls. Like it's a series full of like such like visual like splendor, like wonder. Um, like you would imagine they'll go to town on that more and have it a bit more varied kind of thing. Um, I think there was some great visuals. I love from a visual point of view. I love the jumping ahead a little bit, but when they come together and they escape and are using the waft to do that, that's very exciting
Yeah,
visually and a great action scene.
yeah, definitely. While the troll's chasing after them and then turns to stone and starts rolling down the hill.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a great payoff, and the design of the trolls are great too, especially the two-headed one.
Yeah, that two-headed one. It's quite a. It stands out that troll.
It stands out, but keeps it simple. It stands out, but whilst keeping it simple, which is clever.
There's so much variety with all the trolls, and I like that.
Yeah,
They're all recognizable individual characters.
you got the sweet like parent child ones. You have the two-headed one. You have the silly one that puts a jorts packet on its head. Like it's just little things like that. Um,
Yeah, the one that stole the camera in an earlier episode.
yeah, that's a nice reference, wasn't it? It's a good episode, and I think it's got it's interesting as well. Like when Johanna says to Hilda to wait while she fetches a twig.
Yeah, I do like Joanna getting to like. I want more of Joanna getting to have the adventures because when she does get involved, she's good at it.
And it's something like quite likable, I think, about like someone like me, I guess, like being like not just a kid who's looking for adventures, but someone like that. And she's very you can see like she's very like clever, obviously, and there's a lot of tension because she won't just like she will like to a certain degree more than Hilda like care about safety a bit more and say no, we won't
Yeah,
jump over that gap. We'll go for a narrower gap or way over kind of thing. And like so when she breaks into that troll's lair, um, like there's nice. Not only is it nice to see her character, but there's a bit of extra jeopardy, arguably, like given the way she
yeah.
approaches it. And Hilda kind of mucks it up, arguably, by trying to save her. And Johanna's right in saying this is part of the problem with their relationship. About it comes back to trust, as she said earlier.
Yeah, this is the theme of the whole season. It's about trust. And here's the thing, that's what this whole episode is driving home, not just with Joanna and Hilda, but when it comes to the trolls as well.
Yeah, and showing that they're not like these monsters you have to be terrified of. or antagonize to drive them away.
Yeah.
And not just basing it on appearances or like perceived wisdom, like not actually
Yeah.
based in what we actually know.
Exactly.
It's a good one. It's a good episode.
It's the one problem with it is that it sets up a cliffhanger that we still haven't had a resolution to.
Oh God! And it came out so long ago. Yeah, it was 2020, I think. Um,
Yep. It was, in fact, almost by the time this episode comes out,
mhm.
it'll be more than it'll be like over a year since it came out.
As long as it's not like that Primeval episode where the characters are stuck in a tree from dinosaur for like 5 years or something ridiculous. That's an aside.
I've had so many shows that I really love that have ended on a cliffhanger
Yeah,
and then been cancelled.
goddamn networks.
Hmm.
We'll just have to wait and see. At the time of recording, there's a frustrating lack of like actual info, and it's been announced that it will be the final season.
Oh, the third season will be the final season. That's terrible because there should be more seasons of this. This show has so much potential in it. But yes, the third season. How long until we get the third season, though? Is it going to be another year after The Mountain King?
I I don't know. I think
Because that we don't have a date for.
it's such a like it's for it'll be clear to like people listening, and it's clear from our views that it's such a great show. If they are gonna only have 3 seasons, like isn't like type movies, like other things happening too, would be great as well. Um,
Yeah,
because it's such a. I think what's great about Hilda is there's so much like mileage. Like we've even like kind of sketchboarded, storyboarded like an episode around Johanna already. uh,
I hope we get something like this with season 3 because,
hmm.
yeah, I really love her as a character.
I think just it's a very good season. I think both seasons have been excellent. I think as I said, like I rated season 2 more highly on my first watch just because of like the big standout episodes and the kind of the building story and the epic conclusion. But whenever we watched them, season 1 did more of that than I gave it credit for. And
Yeah,
and there was some slight throwaway random like fillerish episodes in season 2 that hadn't quite registered.
yeah,
But this is the kind of nitpicking. It's such a great series, and there's so much fun and so much heart in it, so much charm.
definitely so much heart in it. And yeah, there's few series as charming as this. And hopefully we can find out, yeah, how they resolve the whole Hilda body swapping with a troll thing in a couple of weeks' time.
That would be great. I'm like you, Amy. I've been desperately
Or for
hard
our
pressed to leave
listeners,
it. Yeah,
possibly you already know because it'll have come out by the time this goes out, probably.
fingers crossed. um, so excellent. I've really enjoyed that recap with you, Amy.
But I look forward to the next show we're doing one on.
Definitely. So thanks everyone for listening. Let us know what you thought, how you rank the seasons, what your favorite episodes are, and yeah, theories. We want theories about what's
Ooh,
going to
yeah.
happen. Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.
As you can tell, we recorded this before the Hilda movie release date had been announced. So me and Amy have since not only seen the movie, but recorded an episode on it too. So you can look forward to listening to our future episode, letting you know our thoughts on the film. Thanks for listening, everyone. Keep checking out the Dreaming Machine.